Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Representative Chrissy Houlihan's telephone town hall focused tonight on COVID scams. She's joined by our Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, as well. I want to thank everyone for joining, and at any point throughout the call, if you have a question, please press *3 on your phone. Again, at any point, if you have a question, press *3. That will get you transferred to one of the Congresswoman staffers who will take down your question and enter it into the queue. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Representative Houlihan.
Thanks, Connor, and good evening to everyone, and thank you all for joining our telephone town hall. I know that we have a lot to cover and lots of folks on the line, so let's get to it. I'd like to start by providing you a brief update on our COVID relief plan. This weekend, at unfortunately around 2:30 in the morning on Saturday morning, I and the Congress voted for the American Rescue Plan. We need to make sure that we're getting this virus under control once and for all, and the legislation that we passed is a comprehensive piece of legislation in that it includes many resources that our community has been asking for. The American Rescue Plan calls for a national vaccination program that includes setting up community vaccination sites as well as funding for local and state governments. This is critical. I know you have been frustrated thus far by the fact that the vaccine rollout and distribution in our Commonwealth is not optimal. We need certainly to ramp up quickly and make sure that new shots are actually getting into arms as quickly as possible. And we need our teachers, our first responders, and our other essential workers vaccinated as soon as possible. This legislation helps provide that support needed to get that done. And I'll continue to work with our government, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, and the Biden administration to make sure that our community is getting the vaccines and the support it needs. Our legislation also includes a $1,400 stimulus check to get to the $2,000 that was promised before the end of the year. Families in our community have been very clear on how this money will be able to be helpful on groceries, on rent, and on so much more. We have increased support for our hardest hit small businesses as well, particularly in our smallest of the small businesses, with EIDL grants or emergency disaster loan grants, expanded Paycheck Protection Program eligibility, and much more. And on that front, last week, we marked the start of a 14-day exclusive window for the Paycheck Protection Program applications to be able to be coming from small businesses with fewer than 20 employees only. This comes after our office worked with congressional leadership and with the Biden administration on developing initiatives that will provide a direct lifeline to our smallest of small businesses. These are the mom and pop shops on our main streets, the child care facilities that watch our children, the local pharmacies, and so much more. This bill also invests nearly $130 billion in school reopening, as well as making up for lost learning. Having been a teacher before, I know exactly how important it is to have kids learning in the classroom, and so I know you do as well, want to make sure that we're doing it safely. And that's why we're working to get increased vaccines to Pennsylvania, as well as voting for bills like this that will help fund the reopening effort. I'm proud to have helped pass this crucial legislation at a time when our community and our Commonwealth desperately need this relief. And I and others have called on the Senate to convene quickly and to pass this bill so that we can get it to the President's desk for signature and to get the relief into hands of the Pennsylvanians themselves. Now, I'd like to turn to our topic of tonight's telephone town hall, and tonight's topic is COVID scams. As you probably know, we try to make sure that we have themed conversations, and tonight we're going to be focusing on COVID scams. And it's always upsetting to see people being taken advantage of at a difficult time. And that's exactly what scammers are doing now. New data from the Federal Trade Commission found that in 2020 alone, that there were more than 4.7 million reports of scams, which is an increase of over 1.5 million from the previous year. Most of that increase is directly due to COVID crisis and to scammers who seek to prey on people's vulnerabilities and fear about this public health crisis. So that's why we're hosting this town hall tonight, to help educate ourselves and our community with what we need to know to protect ourselves against these scams. And that's why I'm so grateful to have with us Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who's been leading the charge in our Commonwealth to stop these scammers and to ensure the safety of our citizenry, particularly of our older population, who are the most common target for scammers. And so with that, I'd very much like to hand it over to you, Mr. Attorney General. Josh, please help us with your opening remarks. And thank you for joining us.
Great. Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it. And you correctly pointed out in your opening remarks about how so many of our communities from Chester County all across this Commonwealth are hurting right now. And I just want to say thank you for the work you did to get that COVID relief package passed in the wee hours of the morning to provide important support that people need. And, I look at that big package. Let's not lose sight of the fact that there are some specifics in there that are really going to help people get back up on their feet, like funding for rental assistance and programs for addressing mental health and substance abuse, which are on the rise now in the midst of this pandemic, for food assistance, and of course those direct payments that you talked about. So thank you for your leadership on that bill. And I hope that the many thousand people who are gathered here with us tonight on this telephone town hall are doing well and staying safe. It's been almost a year since we all were able to gather in person, and I know that this has been a really difficult time for folks across the Commonwealth and the country. We've lost more than 24,000 people here in Pennsylvania who have died of COVID, and more than 940,000 have gotten sick just in our Commonwealth alone. This virus has tested us as parents, as members of the community, as small business owners, and of course as essential workers. And one thing that I talk a lot about is how it's also laid bare some of the deep disparities that exist in our system today. Who's deemed essential? Who can work from home? Who gets a vaccine or a test and who has to wait in line? Who's forced to go to work in unsafe conditions and who has people who can advocate for themselves? These are just some of the disparities that are deep and need to be addressed as we dig our way out of this crisis. I want you to know that our office, the Office of the Pennsylvania Attorney General, is here for you and working on many of these things. We've been working around the clock to deal with scams and stop price gouging and protect consumers, and we've been successful. Let me give you a little bit of data. Since COVID began back on March 12th, 2020, we've received 21,500 specific consumer complaints regarding COVID. Nearly a quarter of all of the complaints that we received in the year prior. We've been really aggressive at dealing with price gouging. We cited 27 businesses for price gouging for in-demand items like cleaning supplies and paper products and medical equipment. We've recovered more than $45,000 in one area for consumers who were gouged on prices, and we've shut down hundreds of other price gouging efforts across this Commonwealth. My Fair Labor section partnered with large national companies like Home Depot, Amazon, Walmart, and Whole Foods, and small businesses like Mom's Food Grocery in Philadelphia to secure safe working conditions for employees and keep facilities safe for the public. We've fielded 1,200 complaints from workers who felt that they were being forced to go to work in conditions that were unsafe, and we addressed each and every one of them. On the criminal side, we've arrested 29 individuals for fraud involving unemployment compensation. We've shut down 6 different fraud rings, and I've announced that this is very much an active and ongoing investigation where we expect to make additional arrests. Just last week, we indicted an administrator for a nursing home in Western Pennsylvania, where the facility put residents at risk by providing a dangerously low amount of nursing staff just as the COVID surge hit the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then they lied about it and covered up their tracks, and this person is now facing some very serious criminal charges. I also announced at the time that this is an ongoing and active investigation. I expect more arrests to be announced in the coming weeks. We will protect our most vulnerable, especially those living in nursing homes. Now, look, while more folks get vaccinated, we hope to see our lives get to be a little bit more safe and a little bit more normal. Now is not the time to stop protecting yourself and those around you. And that holds true not just for your physical health, but also protecting you from scams. We've seen an uptick in scams throughout the pandemic, and scammers know that people are home right now, and there's more of a chance that they're going to answer their phones. And I want to say, while there's a stereotype that elderly people are the most likely to be scammed, it's really important to remember that anyone can be scammed. All it takes is you picking up the phone at the wrong time on a bad day, or clicking on a link in an unsolicited email. So As I wrap up here, before we start taking your questions, I want to give you a couple key pieces of advice. If you get a call from someone asking you for money, take your time. The scammers want to force you to act quickly so you don't have time to think things through. And I would argue you should never be giving money over the phone from an unsolicited call or an unsolicited email. Never, ever, ever pay for anything with gift cards. And I know it sounds like that's sort of crazy, but a lot of times pressure is exerted on people. They feel like they have to act now, and they're told that the way they need to pay for this is through gift cards. A lot of scammers will ask you to pay for something in a gift card because they're not traceable, and it makes it harder for us in law enforcement to do our jobs to catch the perpetrators. So please do not pay for things in gift cards. If someone's asking you for a gift card, it is a scam. As we approach tax time, recognize that there are a significant number of IRS scams out there. The IRS will never call you in an unsolicited manner. And so if they do, and they call you and ask you to pay your taxes by phone, hang up. It's a scam. You may also hear about the grandparent scam. For those of you who have grandchildren, this is a scam where people call your home, tell you that they have your grandchildren, and in order for you to get them back from the condition or the situation where they are, you're being forced to cough over thousands of dollars in gift cards. Now, that is another scam, and it sounds crazy to think about, but oftentimes people panic at that moment, and they pay up. And so I just want to encourage you, use your noggin, take a deep breath, and recognize that these unsolicited calls and emails and texts, these are scams. And if you feel like you may have been victimized by a scam, contact me in my office immediately. We have a special email hotline. And Congressman, I'll give it now. It's scams@attorneygeneral.gov. I also just want you to be on alert as the vaccine rolls out more to people in 1B and 1C and really starts to hit the masses here. We're already seeing scammers begin to work overtime to try and take advantage of consumers, to force you to pay for the vaccine, which, thanks to Chrissy and others, is being offered at no cost, or they're trying to get your personal information to get you signed up. Please don't give over your personal information unless it's a website or a phone number or a pharmacy or a county health center that you go to, that you reach out to. If they're reaching out to you in an unsolicited way, 99.9% of the time, that is going to be a scam. Please don't fork over any money or personal information to get a vaccine like that. Again, our hotline is scams@attorneygeneral.gov. We've received tens of thousands of tips. Do not be embarrassed. Do not be ashamed. We want to hear from you so we can do our job to shut down the scammer so he doesn't or she doesn't go after someone else, and that we can work to get your money back. We've gotten millions of dollars back for Pennsylvanians over the last 4 years, and if need be, we'll get it back for you. So thank you, Congresswoman, for having me. I look forward to the questions and just wish everyone good health and safety, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, General. Connor, would you like to have us remind us how we can ask questions?
Yep. So again, a reminder to everyone, please press *3 if you have a question. And we actually have some written in questions as well that we want to make sure we tackle. So this is from Jonathan in Phoenixville, and he asks, what can we do to protect ourselves from becoming the victims of a scam? And I think, Mr. Attorney General, if you have any advice there, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, look, it goes back to what I said before. Don't click on an unsolicited link. I would argue don't answer the phone, let it go to voicemail, and then you can screen it after. But if you do, and someone's pushing you to make payment on something or pushing you to give them personal information, that's a scam. If all else fails, I'll give you permission to do what my mother-in-law does when she answers the phone. Just say your son-in-law is the Attorney General. That is a great way to get people to hang up on you very quickly and not try to take advantage of you.
Perfect. Thank you. And go ahead.
It's Chrissy. That's just when I was a kid, my parents used to say, just tell them your parents say you can't go. And it just reminded me of that. So
Right.
Perfect. Sandra had written into us about, Mr. Attorney General, what are the most common scams that your office is investigating and seeing right now?
Yeah, I touched on some of them before. It's IRS scams. we're seeing a lot of scams regarding the vaccine. We're seeing scams, involving solicitations for fake charities. These are probably the top scams that we're seeing right now. And actually, I'll add a fourth to that, the lottery scams, where someone will call you and tell you that you were entered into, usually they call it the Jamaican lottery, and you won, I'm making it up, $1 million, but in order to get your winnings, you just have to prepay the taxes. And sadly, a number of people will prepay what they think are the taxes and then never get their money. We actually shut down a Jamaican lottery scam that had kind of an outpost operating out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the western part of our Commonwealth, and chased down the ringleader of the scam in some Caribbean island. We were able to extradite him, and we're prosecuting him in western PA. So lottery scams are another one that are on the rise that people are hearing a lot about.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. And it looks like we have a caller on the line. This is Frederick McCarthy, I believe, from Avondale. Frederick, you should be on the line.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry.
We can hear you, Frederick.
What is your biggest accomplishment during this Biden administration?
I'm sorry. I think Frederick, I can hear you, and you're asking what is our biggest accomplishment so far in the Biden administration?
Yes.
Is that correct? So I think that we are laying the groundwork for, as we mentioned, the passage of this most recent COVID relief bill is a big deal, Frederick. It's $1.2 trillion of support, which I think is very much needed. And in terms of the support of the American people, something like 70% of us believe that this is the kind of package that we need to see. Now it's really on the pressure's on the Senate to push it forward too, which is part of the reason why you saw that late night, push from the House to push over to the Senate. I hope what you'll see as well in the next several weeks are similarly big swings at things like infrastructure, hearing as much as a $4 trillion swing at that as well, to not only help people get kind of back to their health and back to the world, but also back to a better and more inclusive economy as well. And so that really, I think, again, bipartisanly, people agree that something that we've been missing on has been really big, really aggressive infrastructure packages. And so I'm proud of that as well, that we will be working on that. But largely what I'm proud of is advocating for my community, for our community. We have held more town halls than any other representative in Pennsylvania. They are, as we hopefully are seeing here, really led by the facts and by science and by data and by experts. And they are typically attended by thousands of people, which I think is helpful, and making sure that we're addressing this really, really scary time with truth and facts and data. And similarly to the Attorney General, that we're returning value to our community. This last week, we passed $5 million in total value that we've returned to the 6th Congressional District. And to give you some perspective, this congressional office costs the taxpayers about $1.3 million per year. So we are a very profitable venture, and I think a really good investment on the part of the taxpayers. So it's a variety of different things that I'm proud of as well. Thanks for your question, though, Frederick.
Connor, if I can jump in real quick, I want to say a word about the Congresswoman doing all these town halls, because I recognize the folks who are on this call are predominantly from Chester County. This is not the norm to have a Congresswoman that is this accessible, this open, and this available to her constituents. And, for her to take the time and do these town halls and answer your questions, that's not what typically happens. And I just want to commend you, Congresswoman, for doing that. I think, being there, being transparent, answering people's questions really matters. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Attorney General. And just an FYI, I know we've got a number of people on the call. Just in case, we will not be able to probably get to everyone, but I'm so sorry. We won't be able to get to everyone afternoon. But if we don't, our office has a policy that anyone who either got a question screened or pressed *3 at any point throughout the call will receive a call back from our office within 48 hours to answer your question. So just in case we're unable to get to you this evening, we will be returning your call. With that, it looks like we've got another question for Attorney General written in. What should I do to verify that the person online is legitimately from the agency, Social Security, Medicare, they say they're calling from? I get a lot of these calls. I'm 73, and this is from, let's see, this is from Marshall in Coatesville.
Well, Marshall, thanks for your question. And I would say that no one from the Social Security Administration, for example, is going to call you unsolicited. So if you're getting calls from someone purporting to be from the Social Security office, that's a scam. Now, if Social Security is going to call you, they're required to reach out and provide you with a PIN or notification that they'll be calling, in some other way to verify that person calling you in the first place. And so you're just getting unsolicited calls from people purporting to be from federal government agencies. These are scams. Don't turn over any personal information. Don't turn over any financial information. I'd urge you to not answer the phone in the first place, but if you do, hang up. And if you feel like maybe you might have gotten tricked a little bit and started to turn over some information before you ultimately shut down the call, then I would suggest you alert us right away in the AG's office by emailing us at scams@attorneygeneral.gov.
Perfect. Thank you, Attorney General. It looks like we've got another caller on the line. I believe this is Bruce. Bruce, you should be on the line with us. Bruce, do we have you? Okay, it looks like we lost Bruce. Well, we have this question here. Representative Houlihan, Bruce's question is, what things can be done to improve the distribution of vaccines in Chester County and Berks counties?
I appreciate the question. It's something I spend a lot of time on. In fact, this morning there was a call with all of the Congress, all the congressional delegation and the governor and his team about this very issue. You may or may not have seen an article about that in the Inquirer over the weekend. And for a few weeks, we've been having these conversations with the governor and his team about the fact that we are concerned that there aren't enough vaccines being released to places like Chester and Berks, to places like southeastern Pennsylvania, Collier counties. And in today's phone call, we received assurance that this was not only being looked into, but was being rectified. And so this then turns to an issue of supply to the state, which also is problematic. And so I have also been spending time on the phone with the Biden administration and with our transition team and a variety of other people, and my team has been doing the same to, demand that Pennsylvania gets its fair share, and frankly, then some, because similarly, I do not believe that we've received what is proportionately what we should be getting. And the way that is determined both here in our counties, but also in the country, is based, unfortunately, on some pretty unfortunate things. It's based on our population compared to other places. It's based on how old our population is. It's based on how prevalent the disease is. It's based, unfortunately, on how many people have passed away from the disease. And so all of those things are not heading in the right direction. We don't have the vaccine that we ought to have in our part of the country and in our region. And so that is something that we've been advocating for. As recently as about an hour ago, when we also released a letter to the governor signed by 4 members of Congress, myself included, which I led, which talks about the importance of moving as rapidly as possible to 1B, as the Attorney General talked about. Right now, we're in 1A. We believe that population is about 4 million people. We believe that about, I feel like it's 1.8 million have already received 1 dose, and many have received 2. So we still have quite a ways to go for that. We've also heard that we're getting, I believe it's 80 or 90,000 doses of the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine as well. So we know that this is a big issue. We are, not just my office and myself, but also all of the members of Congress and all of your state representatives and senators are also working on this issue along with the governor, recognizing that there's a great deal of work that still needs to be done and advocating for you guys as well. So lots to do, lots to work on, and we recognize that it is urgent and life-saving.
Thank you. Our next caller is from Westchester, Carmela. Carmela, you should be on the line.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. As a Westchester resident, what can we do on an individual or as an individual to get this COVID bill passed quickly in the Senate? I realized over the weekend that all of the Republicans voted against the bill, including 2 Democrats. When can we stop this and get both sides to work together? Because if Congress doesn't unite, we're not going to unite.
I share your anxiety and frustration, and a lot of the work that I do on our behalf is bipartisan. I'm a member of a variety of different groups, caucuses they're called, that are bipartisan. One that's called the Problem Solvers, that is, at this point, I think about 25 and 25 Democrats and Republicans, and it actually has a component on the Senate side as well. And as well, I'm part of a group that's called For Country, which is people who have served in uniform before serving in Congress. And so I'm frustrated too. I very much would like to see a bipartisan package. In the interim, this package that we've moved forward in the House has an opportunity to pass in the Senate, and you have the ability to help do that. The ability that you have is to call our senators, Senator Casey as well as Senator Toomey, and advocate for this particular package. The way that it's been written is it requires just a simple majority. It doesn't require 60 members to vote for it, and so we do have an opportunity of passing this package. And I really, really look forward on future packages like the infrastructure one that I was talking about, for us to get together and work with one another. I think it's really important, and I think the American people are really asking us as elected officials to, drop the partisan nonsense and bickering and really work. But I think that the American people are really hurting right now, and we don't have a lot of time, to kind of sit down and mess around. So part of the reason why this method that is being used that doesn't require 60 votes is being used is because of the urgency of this need. So as an individual, a way that you can be helpful is to call your senators, and that is probably the most helpful thing that you can do. And to stay educated as clearly you are, and following the news and following what's going on.
Perfect. Our next question comes from Mairead in Reading, and the question is, what should folks do if they've given out their personal information to a scammer? So I assume she's talking about after the fact they've realized this has happened. What steps should they take to try and mitigate any harm, Attorney General?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it depends on the personal information you gave out, and certainly don't share it here on this call, but you should alert us immediately. If you're comfortable, you can send us an email at scams@attorneygeneral.gov, or you can go on my website, www.attorneygeneral.gov, and fill out a complaint form. If for some reason you gave over information related to an account that requires a password, change your password right away. If you gave over a credit card, you should contact your credit card company and make sure nothing has been withdrawn from it, or if it has, immediately contact your company to stop that from going on and stop further withdrawals. Similarly, if you gave over a bank account number, you want to contact your bank to stop anything else from coming out of that, essentially putting a freeze on your accounts while we go to work for you to do everything we can to get your information, or protect your information and get that scammer who did that to you. So that's what ultimately I would recommend. Contact us immediately so we can go to work for you.
Perfect. And we have time for one more question this evening. But again, a reminder to everybody on the line. I know there are still many questions in the queue, many people that have pressed *3 that haven't been able to get screened yet. Our staff is still working to try and process everyone. But regardless of whether we take down your question tonight, within the next 48 hours, if you asked a question or press *3 at any point throughout this call, you will receive a call from Congresswoman Houlihan's office so that we can either provide you an answer or help point you in the direction of that answer. So with that, I'd like to welcome Greg. Greg is in Westchester. Greg, you should be on the line.
Hi there, and I want to first echo the Attorney General's comment earlier about Representative Houlihan making herself available. I appreciate that. I wish others did, including our senator, so I'll just throw that out there as a thank you first. And then secondly, my question for both of you is around scam calls generally, and what, if any, efforts either Pennsylvania or Congress is doing to try and fix the issue of incessant robocalls, scam calls, whatever you want to call it. It seems the phones are no longer for us. They're only for people to try and hit us up for stuff that we don't want. So could you just talk about that, please?
Sure. And thank you for your question. All right, so I'm going to give you a layered answer. First and foremost, everyone should sign up, unless you enjoy these robocalls. You should sign up for the Do Not Call list. You can access that on my website, attorneygeneral.gov. I'm sure the Congresswoman has a link on her website as well. Now, many of you I know right now are mumbling under your breath, I can't hear you, saying, I already did sign up for that, and I'm still getting these calls, right? And so I would say to you, you're getting those calls because the people calling you are actually not legitimate businesses, right? If they were legitimate businesses, they would honor the Do Not Call list. And in fact, of all the complaints we get each year, less than 1% involve legitimate businesses who violate the Do Not Call list. So what you're getting are the scammers, right? So think about that when you get a call. Legitimate businesses, if you're on the Do Not Call list, are not calling you. And so that is really, really important. And you can sign up for the Do Not Call list on your cell phones as well as on your home phone. So it's sort of point number one. Point number two is you will probably notice on your home line as well as on your cell phones, more and more calls coming in that seem like they're coming from a local business, right? So it's got the same area code, the same first three digits as the local business down the street in Westchester. Yet it's not coming from the local business down the street in Westchester. This is what's known as spoofing, where they essentially, the scammers will spoof a number that looks local and use it to try and trick you into answering the call. I've led a delegation of attorneys general from around the country, primarily myself, North Carolina, and a few others, to empower the FCC to block these spoof calls. And in fact, the technology, thanks to the work at the FCC and our pushing, is now in effect, and you will notice on your home line and certainly on your cell phones now, over the last few weeks, maybe months, you're getting a note that says spam risk or spam call. That's a result of us working with the telephone companies and the FCC to kind of flag what otherwise were those spoof calls or scam calls that were supposed to come to you. I'm going to continue to work with the Congresswoman. I know Senator Casey's particularly interested in this, especially now as the chairman of the Aging Committee, because so many of those calls target older Pennsylvanians. We're going to keep trying to do what we need to do on the technology side to silence as many of these calls as possible. Final point, I've said this before, I'll say it again, is this. Best thing you can do if you're already signed up for the Do Not Call list and you know the people calling aren't legit, let it go to voicemail. Listen to the message. Take a deep breath before you call somebody back. And I think those steps, combined with the technological changes we're trying to make and the legal steps that we're taking, are going to go a long way toward protecting you from these scams. Thanks for your question.
And thank you, Attorney General. On the federal side of things, there is also legislation, and I served last Congress, the 116th Congress. H.R. 3375 was a piece of legislation that I co-sponsored called Stopping Bad Robocalls. And this is a piece of legislation that I would expect would be reintroduced this Congress. Last Congress, it passed the House, but did not pass through in the Senate. And this piece of legislation allows carriers to offer call blocking services to consumers with no charge, with transparency safeguards to make sure that important calls aren't accidentally blocked. It also requires phone carriers to implement a call authentication technology so that consumers can trust their caller ID again. So there's a lot in that piece of legislation. As you probably all remember from your schoolhouse rock, every couple of years, 2 years to be exact, we flush out the old bills and put in the new ones. So I will anticipate that in the early days of this Congress that will be reintroduced, and I will be co-sponsoring that and hopefully voting on it again. And hopefully at this point it will go through the Senate and onto the president's desk for signature.
All right, thank you, everyone. And so before I hand it back to Representative Houlihan for closing remarks, I just want to remind everyone, we've had thousands of people on this call, and we want to thank all of you for joining. Again, I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions, but you will hear back from our office within the next 48 hours. And as always, our office is your office, so please, if you have follow-up questions or need any help, please give our office a call so we can help you out. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Representative.
Thanks, Connor, and thank you to everyone who did join us tonight. And thank you, Attorney General, for being with us. As Connor mentioned, if we weren't able to get to your call, a member of our staff will call you within the next 48 hours. And we will be putting up in our Facebook and our Twitter and a variety of other locations, including our website, a recording of this town hall too. And we'll be sending that around to our email list, to those folks who are part of our people who have opted into our email list. So I would encourage you to do that as well at houlihan.house.gov, which is HOULAHAN.house.gov, like government. And that's where you can go online as well to subscribe to our newsletters and to our emails as well. I really encourage you to share that information with friends and neighbors because it's the easiest way that I have to be able to communicate with our constituents directly and very much want to be able to reach all 700 and something thousand of us. I know that this is a really difficult time for many of us, and I know that I am working as hard as I can be. I hope that you understand just how hard this issue is for everyone and how important it is to me personally to deliver relief to our community, the relief that I know that we all so desperately need. As always, our office belongs to you, to our community. I really look forward to the time when you can come and join me back in our Westchester and Reading offices and down here in Washington. But in the meantime, if you do have any questions at all, please do feel free to call us. You can reach this office at 202-225-4315. Thank you. As always, be well, stay safe, and take care of each other.